The invitation. The message arrived on a Thursday, though such Earth measurements meant little to the beings who sent it. Commander Cale Vorden stood in the observation deck of humanity's flagship, the Defiant Hope, watching the stars blur past in streaks of impossible light. His weathered hands gripped the railing as he read the holographic display for the third time. The Galactic Council requests the presence of humanity at the Convergence Station. Terms of coexistence must be established. The Crithani Empire will attend. This is not optional. Beside him, Dr. Mira Castellan adjusted her glasses, a nervous habit she'd never lost despite having perfect vision. They've never invited us before. In 200 years of space travel we've been tolerated. Why now? Because of Epsilon Ridge, Cale said quietly. 3 months ago, a human colony on Epsilon Ridge had discovered something impossible. A way to manipulate gravitational fields without exotic matter. It was crude, dangerous, and had already caused 2 stars in nearby systems to flicker unnaturally. The universe had noticed. The Crithani think we're reckless, Mira continued, pulling up reports on her datapad. According to intercepted communications, they've called us the Chaos Species 17 times in the past week alone. Cale allowed himself a grim smile. The Crithani Empire controlled 40% of known space. They were ancient, powerful, and utterly convinced of their superiority. Their emperor, Zelthurus the Eternal, had ruled for 6,000 years. He'd watched civilizations rise and crumble like sandcastles. And now he wanted to talk. Assemble the delegation, Cale ordered. We're going to this summit. And we're going prepared. As Mira hurried away, Cale turned back to the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the light and darkness, 2 empires were about to collide. He just hoped humanity would survive the impact. The Convergence Station. The Convergence Station hung in the void between galaxies, a massive structure built by the Galactic Council 10,000 years before humanity had discovered fire. It resembled a spiral of crystalline towers, each one large enough to house a planet's population, all rotating around a core of captured Starlight. The Defiant Hope docked in Bay 77, flanked by Council security ships that scanned them with lights that made human skin itch. Cale led his delegation through corridors that shifted colors with their moods, currently displaying anxious purples and cautious grays. They weren't alone. The Crithani delegation waited in the Grand Atrium, and they were magnificent in the way a supernova was magnificent, beautiful and terrifying. 7 feet tall, with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns, they moved with the confidence of beings who'd never known defeat. Their leader stood at the center, Crown Prince Thyrene, son of Emperor Zelthurus. Thyrene's eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangle on his face, fixed on Cale. When he spoke, his voice resonated like a choir of bells. So, the humans finally arrived. Tell me, Commander Vorden, do your kind understand the concept of humility? Cale met his gaze without flinching. We understand survival, Prince Thyrene. That's gotten us this far. A ripple of surprise ran through the Crithani delegation. Few species addressed their crown prince without honorifics. Before Thyrene could respond, the council representative materialized between them, a being of pure energy named Loomis, one of the architects who'd built the station. Its voice echoed in their minds rather than their ears. Welcome, children of matter and ambition. The summit begins. The question before us is simple. Can humanity be trusted with the keys to reality itself? Mira stepped forward, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. With respect, Architect Loomis, humanity didn't ask for these keys. We discovered them through research and curiosity, the same drives that have led every species in this chamber to the stars. Curiosity? Thyrene's laugh was like breaking glass. Is that what you call nearly collapsing a star system? Your experiment at Epsilon Ridge created gravitational waves that disrupted trade routes across 3 sectors. Ships were lost. Lives were lost. And you speak of curiosity? And yet, Cale said quietly, you're here. Not to destroy us, which your empire could do. You're here to talk. That means you're afraid of something. What is it, Prince? What scares an empire that's conquered half the galaxy? The silence that followed was absolute. Thyrene's crystalline skin darkened, clouds forming within it like an approaching storm. You dare. He dares speak truth, Loomis interrupted. The summit will continue. 3 days. 3 trials. At the end, we will decide humanity's fate. As the delegation separated to their quarters, Mira caught up to Cale in the corridor. 3 trials? What does that mean? Cale watched the stars through the transparent walls. It means we have 3 chances to prove we deserve to exist. And if we fail... He didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what failure meant. The first trial. Memory. The trial chamber was a sphere 1,000 feet across, its walls displaying the history of the galaxy in real time. Stars were born and died in seconds. Civilizations rose in moments and fell just as quickly. Loomis floated at the center, its light pulsing with ancient patience. The first trial is memory. Let us examine what humanity has learned from its past. The wall shifted, showing Earth. But not the Earth of humanity's present. This was Earth in its infancy. Volcanic, violent, hostile to life. The image fast-forwarded. Single-celled organisms, dinosaurs, ice ages, the rise of humans. Then came the wars. The chamber filled with projections of humanity's darkest moments. World War I. World War II. Nuclear weapons detonating over cities. Environmental collapse. Genocides. Slavery. Cruelty in 1,000 forms. Thyrene's voice cut through the images like a blade. This is what humanity brings to the stars. Violence. Destruction. An inability to learn from mistakes. For every step forward, you take 2 steps back into barbarism. Mira felt her throat tighten as the images continued. She'd studied history, but seeing it displayed like this, all at once, the full weight of human suffering, was overwhelming. You judge us by our worst moments, she said, her voice barely audible. Because your worst moments define you, Thyrene replied. The Crithani Empire has maintained peace for 6 millennia. We learned our lessons long ago. You are still children playing with weapons you don't understand. Kale stepped forward into the center of the chamber. You're right. We've made mistakes. Terrible ones. But you're wrong about what defines us. He turned to Loomis. Show them the rest. The images shifted again. A human shielding another during the Holocaust. Medics running into danger during earthquakes. Scientists working together across borders to cure diseases. The first human in space reaching for the stars not with weapons but with wonder. Communities rebuilding after disasters. Strangers helping strangers. Parents sacrificing everything for their children. We don't forget our darkness, Kale said quietly. We carry it with us. Every mistake, every failure, every moment of cruelty, we remember it all. But we also remember every act of kindness, every sacrifice, every time we chose to be better than we were. He faced Thyrene directly. You maintained peace for 6,000 years? Impressive. But answer me this, how many species did you conquer to achieve that peace? How many civilizations did you erase because they didn't fit your vision of order? Thyrene's skin flickered with anger. We brought stability. You brought submission, Mira interrupted, her confidence growing. We've studied your history too, Prince. The Crithani Empire doesn't negotiate, it absorbs. You offer species a choice, join your empire or be destroyed. That's not peace. That's dominance. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the gathered beings. Loomis pulsed with a light that might have been approval. The first trial concludes. Humanity remembers both its failures and its triumphs. But memory alone is not enough. Tomorrow we test something more fundamental, choice. As they left the chamber, Thyrene paused beside Kale. When he spoke, his voice was quieter, almost thoughtful. You defend your species with passion, Commander. But passion has never been enough to survive in this galaxy. Tomorrow's trial will prove that. Kale watched the prince walk away, his crystalline form reflecting the starlight in hypnotic patterns. Mira, he said quietly, what do you know about the Crithani's history? Before they became an empire? Mira pulled up her datapad, scrolling through encrypted files. Not much. They've purged most records older than 7,000 years. But there are legends, stories about a time when they were different. Before Emperor Zalthuris took power. Find out what changed them, Kale ordered. Because I don't think we're just fighting for humanity's survival here. I think we're fighting for something bigger. In the darkness between stars, the Convergence Station continued its eternal rotation, and somewhere in its depths, ancient mechanisms prepared for the second trial. The second trial, choice. The trial chamber transformed overnight. Where yesterday it had shown memories, today it became a simulator, a perfect recreation of reality where decisions had consequences. Loomis appeared at dawn, its light dimmer than before, as if the first trial had cost it energy. The second trial begins. In this chamber you will face a choice. The Crithani will face the same choice. Your decisions will reveal the truth of your philosophies. The simulation loaded around Kale and his team. They stood on a planet's surface, lush, green, clearly inhabited. In the distance, cities sprawled across valleys and ships moved through the sky. This is Verdana Prime, Mira recognized it immediately. A council protectorate. Population, 4 billion. Mixed species colony. A new image appeared, an asteroid, massive and deadly, on a collision course with the planet. The simulation's timer showed 72 hours until impact. The scenario, Loomis explained, is simple. You have one experimental ship capable of destroying the asteroid. However, the technology required will cause a chain reaction. Destroying the asteroid will save Verdana Prime, but the gravitational backlash will destabilize the system's star. In approximately 5 years, that star will go supernova, destroying 7 other inhabited systems. Total population, 28 billion lives. Thyrene materialized on the other side of the chamber, his own simulation mirror to theirs. An impossible choice. Save 4 billion now or doom 28 billion later. Not impossible, Loomis corrected. Difficult. You have 1 hour to decide. Choose wisely. Kale's team gathered in a tight circle. There has to be another option, Mira insisted, her fingers flying over her datapad. We could evacuate. Not in 72 hours, interrupted Lieutenant Marcus Reeves, their tactical officer. Even with every ship in the sector, we'd save maybe 10% of the population. So we let 4 billion die? Asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their ethics advisor. We stand by and watch? We don't have to, Kale said slowly, an idea forming. Loomis, a question. In this simulation, do we have access to the same gravitational technology that caused the problem at Epsilon Ridge? You have access to all human technology currently in development. Myra's eyes widened. Kale, no. That technology is unstable. We don't fully understand it. Which is exactly why it might work, Kale interrupted. He turned to the team. At Epsilon Ridge, we accidentally created gravitational waves. What if we could create them deliberately? Use them to alter the asteroid's trajectory without destroying it. The calculations alone would take weeks, Marcus protested. Then we better start now. For the next hour, the team worked frantically. Mira handled the physics, Marcus plotted trajectories, Yuki monitored the ethical implications of each microdecision. Kale coordinated, pushing them toward a solution that felt impossible with each passing minute. Across the chamber, Thyrene and his delegation worked in perfect silence, their decision apparently already made. With 5 minutes remaining, Kale's team had their answer. It was risky, a 37% chance of success, a 52% chance of making things worse, and an 11% chance of catastrophically failing in ways they couldn't predict. It's not enough, Yuki said quietly. We could doom everyone. Or save everyone, Mira countered. Kale looked at each member of his team. This is what humanity does. We don't choose between bad options, we create new ones. Even when the odds are against us. Even when it's dangerous. Because 4 billion lives matter. And 28 billion lives matter. And we refuse to accept that we can't save both. He input their solution into the simulation. Across the chamber, Thyrene announced his decision. The Krithani Empire chooses to save the 28 billion. 4 billion will be evacuated where possible, but the asteroid will not be destroyed. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. This is logic. This is survival. The simulations ran. Thyrene's choice was clean, efficient. 10% of Verdana Prime's population evacuated. The rest perished when the asteroid struck. But the 7 other systems remained safe. 28 billion lives continued unchanged. Humanity's choice was chaos. The gravitational pulses they generated knocked the asteroid off course, but the effects cascaded unpredictably. For a terrifying moment in the simulation, it looked like they'd made everything worse. The asteroid fragmented, pieces scattering toward multiple impact sites. Then the secondary pulses activated, catching the fragments, slowing them, redirecting them into stable orbits around the planet. When the simulation ended, Verdana Prime stood intact. The star remained stable. All 32 billion lives continued. But the energy readings showed massive disruptions across the sector. Trade routes destabilized, communication arrays damaged, 3 uninhabited systems temporarily rendered dangerous to navigation. Loomis studied both outcomes in silence that stretched for minutes. Finally it spoke. The Krithani chose certainty. Humanity chose hope. Both choices have merit. Both choices have cost. But only one choice refused to accept the premise of the question. Thyrene's skin flickered with confusion. They broke the rules of the simulation. No. They revealed that the rules were arbitrary. That even impossible choices contain hidden possibilities for those willing to seek them. The prince turned to Kale and something shifted in his expression. You would risk everything, including failure, rather than accept a certain victory at the cost of the few? Every time, Kale replied. Because the moment we start deciding which lives matter and which don't, we stop being worth saving ourselves. As the trial concluded, Thyrene approached Kale directly, ignoring protocol. Your solution created chaos across an entire sector to save a single world. Yes, Kale agreed. And we'd spend the next decade fixing that chaos. That's the price of refusing to give up. We understand it. We accept it. For the first time, Thyrene's expression wasn't contempt or anger. It was something harder to define. Tomorrow is the final trial, he said quietly. The trial of vision. It will determine everything. He paused at the chamber door. Commander Vorden, the Crithani Empire was not always what it is now. Once long ago we made choices like yours. Passionate. Hopeful. Reckless. What changed? Mira asked. Thyrene's glow dimmed. We learned that hope is expensive. And we decided we could no longer afford the price. Then he was gone, leaving the humans alone in the chamber with more questions than answers. The final trial, vision. The third day arrived with a strange quality to the station's light, as if even the stars were holding their breath. Kale couldn't sleep. He spent the night in the observation deck watching the void between galaxies. Mira found him there at dawn. I found something, she said without preamble, displaying her data pad. In the oldest council archives. 7,000 years ago, the Crithani weren't an empire. They were explorers, scientists, philosophers. They were a lot like us actually. What happened? A war. With a species called the Vexnari. It lasted 3 centuries and nearly destroyed the Crithani homeworld. In the end, a military commander named Zalthuris staged a coup. He promised stability, order, and strength. He delivered all 3, but at the cost of everything that made the Crithani who they were. Kale studied the ancient images. Young Crithani, their crystalline bodies bright with curiosity, reaching for the stars with wonder instead of weapons. Thyrene knows this history. I think he does, Mira agreed. And I think that's why he's really here. Not just to judge us, but to remember what his people lost. The summons to the final trial arrived as they spoke. The trial chamber had transformed one last time. Now it was split down the middle, on one side a perfect representation of Crithani space, orderly and controlled. On the other, human space, chaotic and unpredictable. Between them, a vast expanse of unexplored galaxy. Loomis appeared, its light brighter than it had been since the trials began. The final trial, vision. Each delegation will present their vision for the future. Not just for your own species but for all species. The council will judge which vision better serves the galaxy. Thyrene stepped forward first, his presence commanding. The Crithani Empire offers order. For 6,000 years we have maintained peace through strength. Species that join us receive protection, technology, and prosperity. We have eliminated war, poverty, and chaos from 40% of known space. Images appeared showing Crithani worlds, beautiful, clean, efficient. Cities that function like perfect machines. Citizens who moved with purpose and contentment. Under our vision, Thyrene continued, humanity would be welcomed into the empire. Your chaotic nature would be refined. Your creativity channeled into productive paths. Your tendency towards self-destruction eliminated. You would have peace. You would have purpose. You would have order. The images shifted, showing what humanity might become under Crithani rule. Clean cities. Efficient space stations. Humans and Crithani working side by side in perfect harmony. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. And something about it made Kale's skin crawl. Your turn, Commander, Loomis said. Kale walked to the center of the chamber, aware that the next few minutes would determine humanity's fate. He thought of Earth, messy and chaotic and beautiful. He thought of Epsilon Ridge and its dangerous discoveries. He thought of every mistake humanity had made, and every time they'd chosen to try again anyway. We can't offer order, he began. We're not built for it. We're messy. We argue. We disagree. We make mistakes, sometimes catastrophic ones. But we also offer something the galaxy seems to have forgotten, the possibility of genuine change. He gestured and images appeared, not of perfect cities but of human history. Scientists debating theories. Artists creating impossible beauty. Protesters demanding justice. Children asking questions nobody could answer. The Crithani offer you a choice, join their empire or stand alone. We offer something different. Partnership. Not absorption but cooperation between equals. Yes, it'll be messy. Yes, there will be conflicts and mistakes and moments of chaos. But there will also be surprises. Innovations nobody predicted. Solutions nobody imagined. Growth that happens not because someone designed it from above, but because people, all kinds of people, chose to reach for something better. Kale turned to face Thyrene directly. Your empire has been stable for 6,000 years. That's impressive. But tell me, in those 6,000 years, how much have you actually changed? How many truly new ideas have emerged? How many times has something surprised you? Thyrene's skin flickered. Stability is the goal. Stability is death, Kale interrupted gently. The universe changes. Stars are born and die. Galaxies collide. Species evolve. The only constant is change itself. An empire built on preventing change isn't preserving life, it's embalming it. He turned back to Loomis. Humanity's vision is simple, a galaxy where every species gets to choose its own path. Where mistakes are allowed because they lead to learning. Where chaos isn't something to be eliminated, but something to be navigated together. Where the future isn't predetermined by ancient rules, but created moment by beings brave enough to try new things. The chamber fell silent. Mira stepped forward to support him. We know it's not perfect. We know there will be conflicts. But we also believe that a galaxy where 1,000 different species are all trying their own solutions to problems will ultimately be stronger than a galaxy where one empire decides everything for everyone. Thyrene looked at the competing visions displayed on the chamber walls. And if your chaos destroys everything? If your experiments break reality itself? Then we'll fix it, Kale said simply. Together. Because that's what you do when you care about something. You fight for it, you fix it, you refuse to give up on it. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Loomis pulsed with a light so bright it hurt to look at directly. The trials are complete. The council will deliberate. Both visions have merit. Both have costs. But before we decide. The architect turned to Thyrene. Crown Prince, son of Zalthuris the Eternal, you have been silent about your own opinion. Not the Empire's position but yours. What do you truly believe? Every eye in the chamber fixed on the Crithani prince. His crystalline skin swirled with colors that suggested deep conflict. Reds of passion fighting with blues of logic, greens of curiosity tangling with grays of duty. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. I believe, we made a mistake. The truth of empires. Thyrene's admission hung in the air like a supernova frozen at the moment of detonation. His delegation reacted immediately. Prince Thyrene, you cannot, one advisor began, but Thyrene silenced him with a gesture. I can, the prince said, his voice growing stronger. And I will. Because Commander Vorden is right. We haven't changed in 6,000 years. We haven't grown. We've simply stopped. He turned to face Loomis directly, and when he spoke, it was with the weight of millennia behind his words. Architect, with your permission, I would like to share something the Crithani Empire has hidden for 70 centuries. Speak, young prince. Truth has always been welcome in these chambers. Thyrene closed his three eyes, and when he opened them again, they projected images into the space around him. Memories, preserved through technology and passed down through his bloodline. The humans watched in amazement as the history unfolded. 7,000 years ago, the Crithani had been explorers. Their ships had ranged across the galaxy not to conquer, but to learn. They'd made first contact with hundreds of species, sharing knowledge freely, delighting in diversity. Then came the Vexnari War. The images showed battles that raged for 3 centuries. Whole planets burned. Star systems went dark. The Crithani homeworld itself nearly fell, saved only by desperate measures and devastating losses. When the war finally ended, the Crithani people were broken. Not destroyed but traumatized beyond healing. They'd learned that curiosity led to danger, that exploration meant risk, that diversity could mean conflict. Commander Zalthuris rose to power in that moment of collective fear. He promised them safety. And he delivered, by eliminating everything that could lead to another war. Curiosity became controlled. Exploration became systematic. Diversity became standardized. We told ourselves it was necessary, Thyrene said, and there were tears in his voice, an emotion Kale hadn't known Crithani could express. We told ourselves we were building something better. But my father, the Emperor, he knows the truth. In his private moments, when no one else can hear, he mourns for what we lost. Why doesn't he change it? Mira asked gently. Because he's afraid. We're all afraid. What if we open ourselves to chaos again and another war comes? What if our curiosity leads to catastrophe? What if we can't survive being vulnerable? Thyrene's gaze found Kale. When I saw humanity at Epsilon Ridge, making dangerous discoveries, risking everything for knowledge. I felt something I haven't felt in my entire life. I felt envy. Because you still have what we surrendered. You're still brave enough to be afraid and do the thing anyway. Lieutenant Marcus Reeves spoke up. Prince Thyrene, with respect, you're here. You came to this summit knowing what you might find. That's brave. Is it? Thyrene's laugh was bitter. Or is it just the last gasp of a dying empire, desperately hoping someone else can show us how to live again? Loomis pulsed with something that might have been compassion. The galaxy faces a choice, and it extends beyond these two delegations. The Crithani offer order born of trauma. Humanity offers chaos born of hope. But perhaps there is a third option none of you have considered. The chamber transformed again, and this time it showed both visions merged together, not blended into uniformity but existing side by side, each influencing the other. Crithani order providing structure for human chaos. Human creativity breaking apart Crithani rigidity. Neither dominating, both growing. What if the question is not which vision should prevail, but whether both visions can coexist? What if the true measure of wisdom is not choosing correctly, but choosing together? Kale felt his heart race as understanding dawned. You're not asking us to compete. You're asking us to collaborate. The Galactic Council has existed for 15,000 years. We have seen countless civilizations rise and fall. We have learned one truth above all others. No single philosophy can sustain a galaxy. Diversity, true diversity not just in species but in thought, in approach, in vision, is the only path to survival. Thyrene stepped forward until he stood beside Kale, not opposite him. What are you proposing, architect? A new structure. Not an empire. Not a council. Something that has never existed in this galaxy before. A dual accord. The Crithani Empire and humanity, joined not by conquest or submission, but by mutual recognition of each other's strengths and weaknesses. Where order meets chaos, neither prevailing, both necessary. Dr. Tanaka frowned. But our philosophies are fundamentally opposed. Are they? Mira interrupted, excitement building in her voice. Or are they complementary? The Crithani have stability and resources. We have innovation and adaptability. Together. Together, Thyrene continued, his skin beginning to glow with something like hope, we could explore the galaxy in ways neither of us could alone. Crithani ships with human crews. Human experiments with Crithani oversight. Disagreements resolved through debate, not warfare. It would be messy, Kale warned. Good, Thyrene replied, and for the first time he smiled, a human gesture he'd learned just for this moment. I'm tired of things being clean. Loomis expanded until its light filled the entire chamber. The final trial is complete. Both delegations have proven themselves worthy, not by being perfect but by being willing to grow. The Council's verdict is this: humanity will not be judged by its potential for chaos, and the Crithani Empire will not be judged by its rigidity. Both will be judged by what they choose to build together. You have one standard year to establish the framework of the dual accord. At the end of that time, you will return to this station and present your first joint project to the Council. Show us that coexistence is possible. Show us that different visions can strengthen each other rather than destroy each other. The galaxy is watching. The future is unwritten. Begin. When Starlight bends. 6 months later, the Defiant Hope drifted in orbit around a planet that hadn't existed on any star chart a year ago. Kale stood on the bridge, watching as construction drones, some human, some Crithani, worked in perfect coordination to build something unprecedented. A joint research station where both species would study the phenomenon that had started everything. They called it the Epsilon Initiative. Status report, Kale ordered. Mira looked up from her station, her face illuminated by the soft glow of her displays. The gravitational stabilizers are 98% complete. Crithani precision engineering combined with human adaptive algorithms. We should be able to run controlled experiments within the week. And the safety protocols? Triple-checked by both species, Lieutenant Reeves confirmed. If anything goes wrong, we have 17 independent shutdown procedures. The Crithani insisted on 19, but we negotiated them down. Kale smiled. The negotiations had been fierce, often frustrating, occasionally hilarious. Humans wanted to move fast. Crithani wanted to move safely. Humans proposed wild experiments. Crithani calculated every possible failure mode. But slowly, painfully, they were learning to meet in the middle. A communication chime interrupted his thoughts. Thyrene's face appeared on the main view screen, transmitted from the Crithani flagship Eternal Order on the other side of the planet. Commander Vorden, we have a problem. Kale's stomach tightened. What kind of problem? The political kind. Thyrene's expression was grim. My father, Emperor Zelthuris, has called for an emergency session of the Imperial Council. There are factions within the Empire who oppose the dual accord. They see it as weakness, as a betrayal of everything we've built. Do we need to accelerate the timeline? No. We need to be patient. Thyrene's eyes, all three of them, fixed on Kale with intensity. This is where your human tendency toward optimism conflicts with Crithani caution. If we rush, we prove the opposition right. If we proceed carefully, building trust incrementally, we show that change doesn't have to mean chaos. And if your opposition forces the Emperor's hand? Then we deal with it together. That's the point of the accord, isn't it? Before Kale could respond, alarms blared across both ships simultaneously. Commander! Dr. Tanaka shouted from the science station. I'm detecting massive gravitational fluctuations emanating from the research station. Something's activating the experimental equipment. That's impossible, Mira interrupted, her fingers flying across her console. All systems are offline. Nothing should be. The view screen exploded with light. At the center of the Epsilon initiative, space itself was bending. Not breaking, not tearing, bending, like light around a black hole's event horizon. The starlight from distant suns curved around the phenomenon, creating a sphere of impossible beauty where the laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. It's not our equipment, Thyrene said, his voice tight with wonder and fear. It's natural. The gravitational experiments at Epsilon Ridge didn't create this phenomenon. They revealed it. This is why the starlight was bending. Something is here. Something has always been here. Within the sphere of bent starlight, a shape began to emerge. Vast, ancient, alive. What is that? Reeves whispered. Loomis's voice filled both bridges, calm despite the chaos. That is why the Council was truly concerned about humanity's experiments. Not because you were reckless, but because you were close to waking something that has slept for a very long time. The entity within the bent starlight unfurled, and Kale realized they were seeing something beyond their comprehension. A being that existed in the spaces between spaces, in the gravity wells and quantum foam that held the universe together. This is a star weaver, Loomis explained. They are the oldest intelligence in the galaxy. They shaped the very structure of spacetime when the universe was young. And they have been dormant for 10 million years, waiting for species to reach the level of development where communication becomes possible. The Starweaver's attention, if it could be called attention, focused on the two ships. When it communicated, it didn't use words. It used gravity itself, patterns of attraction and repulsion that both human and Crithani instruments could barely translate. Small ones. You bend the light. You shape the space. You are ready. Ready for what? Kale asked, though he wasn't sure if the entity could even understand the question. The Star Weaver pulsed, and suddenly Kale's mind filled with images, not memories but possibilities. Futures branching in infinite directions. Some showed humanity and the Crithani spreading across the galaxy together, their combined strengths allowing them to survive challenges neither could face alone. Others showed conflict, division, the collapse of the fragile accord before it truly began. All the futures shared one thing: uncertainty. Nothing was predetermined. Everything depended on choices not yet made. The galaxy bends toward those brave enough to shape it. You small ones, chaotic and ordered, reckless and cautious, you have awakened us by refusing to be only one thing. This pleases us. Thyrene's voice came through the comm, steady despite the unprecedented situation. Architect Loomis, what does it want? Not want. Offer. The Star Weavers do not demand or conquer. They teach. For 10 million years, they have waited for species to reach this threshold, where they understand enough to ask questions, but remain humble enough to know they don't have all the answers. The gravitational patterns shifted, and suddenly both crews could understand more clearly. The Star Weaver was showing them something, the fundamental architecture of the universe, how gravity and time intertwined, how space could be folded, bent, shaped, not with brute force but with understanding and cooperation. Mira gasped as equations flooded her screens. This is everything we've been trying to figure out. The gravitational manipulation technology, we were doing it backwards. We were trying to force space to bend. But the Star Weavers, they ask it to bend. They work with the universe, not against it. Cooperation, the Star Weaver pulsed. You learn. Good. Small ones who argue learn faster than small ones who agree. Your chaos order balance is rare. Precious. We will teach. Kale felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. Why us? Why now? Because you almost destroyed yourselves awakening us. Because you chose to meet here together despite fear and anger. Because when given impossible choice you made new choice. These are signs of readiness. The entity began to recede but not disappearing, simply moving into a different layer of reality, one where it could observe without overwhelming the fragile instruments around it. Build your station. Learn together. When ready, call. We will teach you to bend starlight without breaking it. To shape space without shattering it. To reach places in galaxy no small ones have ever reached. But first, prove you can work together for more than 6 months. There was something that might have been humor in that last gravitational pulse. Then the Star Weaver was gone, leaving behind only the gently bent starlight and 2 crews trying to process what had just happened. The silence stretched for a full minute before Thyrene spoke. Well, that changes things. Kale laughed, a sound of pure, overwhelmed relief. Does it? We were already trying to work together. We already had a project. Now we just have a very interested observer and the knowledge that the universe is much stranger than either of us thought. And the promise of knowledge that could transform both our civilizations, Mira added, still scrolling through the equations the Star Weaver had shared. Kale, this is beyond anything we imagined. With this technology, we could explore regions of space that are currently impossible to reach. We could. Slowly, Thyrene interrupted gently. We could do all of that slowly. Carefully. Together. That's what it asked of us. He was right and Kale knew it. The temptation to rush forward, to grab this incredible opportunity with both hands, was almost overwhelming. But that's exactly what had caused problems at Epsilon Ridge. 6 months, Kale said firmly. We'll take the next 6 months to build the station properly. To establish protocols. To prove we can work together even when we disagree. Then, and only then, we'll start exploring what the Star Weaver taught us. My father won't like the delay, Thyrene warned. Then we'll deal with your father together, Kale replied. That's the point of the accord. Neither of us faces the galaxy alone anymore. A chime indicated an incoming transmission, priority level. When it connected, Emperor Zalthuris himself appeared on the screen. 6,000 years old, his crystalline form had layers upon layers of color, like geological strata recording the ages. Crown Prince Thyrene. Commander Vorden. His voice resonated with ancient authority. We detected the gravitational anomaly. Explain. Thyrene stood straighter but his voice didn't waver. Father, we've made first contact with a Star Weaver. The entity has offered to teach us gravitational manipulation technology in exchange for proving the dual accord can function successfully. The Emperor's 3 eyes studied both of them for a long moment. And you believe this is wise? Accepting teaching from a being we don't understand. With respect, Emperor, Kale interjected. Isn't that what the Crithani Empire is doing with humanity? Accepting partnership with a species you don't fully understand. Zalthuris's expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, something shifted in his crystalline depths, a color that hadn't appeared in millennia. Warmth. You are either very brave or very foolish, Commander Vorden. I have not decided which. He paused. My son, the Imperial Council's emergency session will proceed in 3 days. You should return to present your case. I'll be there, Father. But Commander Vorden comes with me. That is, highly irregular. So is everything about the dual accord, Thyrene replied. We face the Empire together or we don't face it at all. For a moment, Kale thought the Emperor would refuse. Then Zalthuris did something no one had seen him do in recorded history. He smiled. Very well. Both of you will present to the Imperial Council. Try not to start another war with your optimism. The transmission ended. Mira let out a breath she'd been holding. Did the 6,000-year-old Emperor just make a joke? I think he did, Thyrene said, sounding stunned. I've never heard him joke. Not once. Maybe, Lieutenant Reeves suggested, he's remembering how. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Kale and Thyrene worked together to prepare their presentation, learning each other's communication styles, finding ways to bridge the gap between human passion and Crithani logic. Dr. Tanaka provided historical context. Mira prepared technical demonstrations. Marcus Reeves drilled them on potential hostile questions from the Imperial Council. On the morning of the presentation, as they prepared to board the shuttle to the Crithani capital world, Thyrene pulled Kale aside. Whatever happens in there, the prince said quietly, thank you. For being willing to try this. For not giving up when it would have been easier. We don't give up, Kale replied. It's kind of our thing. I'm beginning to understand that. And Commander, my father's joke? That wasn't random. It was a signal. He's on our side. But he can't say so publicly until we prove the opposition wrong. The pressure on him is significant. Then we better put on a good show. The Imperial Council chamber was a cathedral of crystal and light, designed to intimidate. 500 Crithani nobles sat in ascending tiers, their forms glowing with the authority of millennia. At the center, elevated above all others, sat Emperor Zalthuris on a throne of condensed starlight. The opposition leader, a general named Vexthar, spoke first. His voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. This dual accord is a mistake. Humanity is chaotic, dangerous, and uncontrolled. They nearly destroyed a star system with their experiments. Now we learn they've awakened an ancient entity, a star weaver, with their recklessness. How long before their chaos consumes us all? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. Thyrene stepped forward. General Vexthar speaks of chaos as if it is only destructive. But I ask the council, what has our perfect order achieved in the last 1,000 years? Silence. We have maintained stability, Thyrene continued. We have preserved peace. But we have not grown. We have not changed. We have not discovered anything truly new. We have become so focused on preventing another war that we've forgotten how to truly live. He gestured to Kale. Commander Vorden, please show the council what we've achieved in 6 months of cooperation. Kale activated the holographic display. It showed the Epsilon Initiative Station now nearly complete. But more than that, it showed the data, discoveries made by combining Crithani precision with human creativity. New mathematical models. Innovative solutions to problems that had stumped both species individually. In 6 months, Kale said, we've made more progress in gravitational research than either species made in the previous decade. Not because humans are superior, not because Crithani are superior, but because we're different. Our differences make us stronger. Vexthar scoffed. Strength? I see instability. I see risk. You're right, Kale agreed, surprising everyone. There is risk. There is instability. But there's also growth. The universe doesn't reward species that play it safe. It rewards species that adapt, that learn, that are willing to be uncomfortable in pursuit of something better. He turned to address the entire council. 7,000 years ago, the Crithani were explorers. You reached for the stars with wonder. Then you were hurt and you closed yourselves off. I understand that. Humanity has done the same thing over and over throughout our history. We build walls. We create rigid rules. We try to protect ourselves from ever being hurt again. But here's what we've learned. You can't grow without risk. You can't discover without the possibility of failure. And you can't truly live without the courage to be vulnerable. Kale met Emperor Zalthuris's eyes directly. Your Majesty, with respect, the Crithani Empire has survived for 6,000 years. That's impressive. But survival isn't the same as thriving. The question before this council isn't whether the dual accord is safe. It's whether you're brave enough to live again. The chamber erupted in argument. Nobles shouted at each other, ancient alliances fracturing in real time. General Vexthar called for an immediate vote to dissolve the accord. Then Emperor Zalthuris stood. The chamber fell instantly silent. 6,000 years ago, the Emperor said, his voice carrying the weight of ages, I made a choice. I chose order over chaos, stability over growth, safety over possibility. I told myself it was necessary, that it was wise, that it was the only way to protect our people. He descended from his throne, moving through the tiers of nobles until he stood at the same level as Thyrene and Kale. I was wrong. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Not wrong to seek stability. Not wrong to protect our people. But wrong to think that stability meant stagnation. Wrong to believe that the only way to avoid pain was to avoid living. He turned to face his son. Thyrene, you have shown me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Not the naive hope of youth, but the mature hope of someone who knows the cost and chooses to pay it anyway. The Emperor addressed the council. The dual accord will continue. Not because it is safe, but because it is necessary. The galaxy is changing. Ancient beings are awakening. New discoveries await. And we can either face these changes alone, rigid and brittle, or we can face them together with allies who complement our strengths and challenge our weaknesses. Those who oppose this decision are free to voice their concerns. But the decision is made. The Crithani Empire will honor the accord. Vexthar stepped forward, his crystalline form dark with anger. And if this decision destroys us? Then we will have died trying to live, Zelthurus replied. That is a better fate than slowly crystallizing into a monument to our own fear. The vote was called. It wasn't unanimous, 40% of the council opposed the accord. But it was enough. As they left the chamber, Thyrene gripped Kale's shoulder. We did it. It's really happening. This is just the beginning, Kale reminded him. Now we have to actually make it work. I know. And there will be challenges. Crises. Moments when we want to give up. Probably, Kale agreed. But that's okay. Because we'll face them together. 3 months later, the Defiant Hope and the Eternal Order drifted side by side in the space where Starlight still bent gently, marking the Starweaver's presence. The Epsilon Initiative Station was complete and operational. Human and Chthoni scientists worked together in labs designed to accommodate both species. Arguments were frequent, breakthroughs were celebrated jointly, and slowly, so slowly, two very different cultures were learning to become one civilization. Kale stood in the observation deck, watching as Mira and a Chthoni physicist named Silvara successfully tested the first practical application of the Starweaver's teachings. A small probe disappeared, not by moving through space, but by asking space itself to bend around it, emerging 1,000 kilometers away without ever crossing the distance between. Impossible, Marcus breathed. 6 months ago, everything about this was impossible, Kale replied. Now it's just Tuesday. A gravitational pulse announced the Starweaver's attention. The entity emerged from its hidden dimensions, starlight bending around it in patterns of impossible beauty. Small ones. You have learned well. You work together despite differences. You argue and grow stronger. You are ready for next teaching. Thyrene's voice came through the comm from the Chthoni ship. We're ready? No, the Starweaver corrected gently. You are never ready. But you are willing. That is better. Come. Let us show you how to ask the stars to dance. As both ships moved forward together into the bent starlight, Kale thought about the journey that had brought them here. The trials. The arguments. The moments of doubt and fear. The choice to keep trying even when failure seemed certain. Behind them, the galaxy watched. Dozens of species monitored the dual accord's progress. Some with hope, some with skepticism, all with intense interest. The future was uncertain. Challenges awaited. There would be conflicts, mistakes, moments when the whole fragile structure threatened to collapse. But for now, in this moment, as human and Chthoni ships moved together into wonder, Kale allowed himself to feel something he hadn't felt in years. Genuine hope. Not hope that everything would be perfect. Hope that even when things were difficult, they would face them together. The starlight bent around them, welcoming them forward. And in the heart of the convergence station, Architect Loomis watched and pulsed with approval. The galaxy is changing. The small ones are ready to help us shape it. Not through conquest or submission, but through the oldest and most powerful force in the universe, the courage to grow. Far across the galaxy, on planets neither human nor Chthoni had ever visited, other species watched the dual accord and asked themselves the same question. If these two very different peoples could find a way to work together, what else might be possible? The answer, like the starlight, was still bending toward discovery.